Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode number 87 of the For Animals for Earth show. Today, we are talking about animal advocacy in Africa, and I'm joined by Aurelia Adhiambo. Hi, Aurelia.
Hi, hello everyone.
It's so nice to have you here. For everybody who's joining us, Aurelia is the Open Wing Alliance Africa lead for the Humane League. She is also a fund advisor on the Effective Altruism Animal Welfare Fund and the Africa liaison of the Animal and Vegan Advocacy AVA Africa Summit. She is based in Nairobi, Kenya. All right, let's go. Can you tell us more about the role that you play in animal advocacy there?
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. So as the Africa lead for the Open Wing Alliance, I support our member organizations that span 13 countries. There are currently 21, 22 member organizations. I support them to be able to achieve the objectives of the Open Wing Alliance. And as you know, our work is targeting companies, asking them to make a cage-free commitment, and therefore we hope to achieve as much impact for hens as possible. So here in Africa, the movement is growing bigger and bigger every day. And the Opening Alliance member organizations are becoming more active in engaging companies in securing commitments and driving the change that we need to see. Yes.
I can imagine as I was reading some of the reports, it sounds like the energy there is just so big right now with everything growing, right? Isn't most everything around you growing, all industry? And then of course you're wanting to get ahead of what may happen to hens with all the growth.
Exactly. For example, Africa's population is really growing and actually projected to, I think, more than double by 2050. And what this may mean is that the consumption of animal products like eggs may, of course, double over that time. So there's a lot of interest in Africa. In terms of the food production and factory farming, and I've seen there's a lot of even interest from companies and so forth. So, yes, the problem is there. And the way we are trying to do this is tackle it by firstly approaching companies, food companies already, to make a cage-free commitment, and trying also to stop especially in those countries that are they are cage-free, trying to stop the use of battery cages or the use of or growth of battery cages in those countries. Yes, so the approach is we are using two approaches. Firstly, stopping the use of battery cages and also preventing the use of battery cages, especially in countries that are still cage-free, African countries. Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. That's actually something I've heard a little bit different from some of the other places that we've had conversations. So you're still at a place where there are some areas that are not yet doing full-fledged factory farming with the battery cages. And so you have kind of a different, it's almost like a yes, like you just said, a two-way battle of stopping it from happening in the first place and then also,
Exactly.
trying to remove well, does it already exist in some places or is it pretty much all trying to stop it from happening?
Actually, it exists in some places. Some countries are more industrialized than others. For example, some countries in Southern Africa and North Africa, very industrialized, and the use of battery cages is very prevalent in those countries. But there are also different other countries in Sub-Saharan Africa that are still relatively cage-free, where the industrialization or intensification has not yet reached or has not yet really significantly grown in those countries. So in those countries, we try to do the messaging of go cage free. And by that, we mean stay cage free. Sorry, try to use the messaging of stay cage free. And by that, we mean that we should stay cage free. We should not adopt battery cages. We should not go towards that direction. But for those countries that are so industrialized, we try to adopt the message of go cage free. And that is stop the use of battery cages and adopt cage-free farming, producing methods. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow, that is yeah, that's really cool. I think you mentioned, did you say you had 21 or 22 member organizations?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and they're spread around 13 countries.
Yes, yes, from West Africa to South Africa to and East Africa. We don't have
Okay.
any member organizations in North Africa.
Okay. Okay. Is it hard to get people involved, or are you finding that it's pretty easy to get the average citizen involved in one of these member organizations and wanting to spread the message of cage free?
So by that, do you mean like the member organizations themselves or the citizens of the countries?
The citizens of the countries.
Okay, so our approach primarily we work with food companies. So we try to push the cage-free message through corporate outreach. So we get companies to adopt what we call a cage-free commitment, where they commit to sourcing only cage-free egg and egg products. So that is the approach that we use. So, but some of the member organizations also do other projects, like for example, public awareness campaigns and messaging and workshops. And so far, the feedback has been good because they report that many people are taking in the message. They're starting to recognize that animal welfare is something very important. It's an issue that has been neglected, yet it's something that is very important and necessary. So the feedback has been amazing. And many of the groups have also noted the need to continue doing advocacy, campaigns, awareness, and also research and all these other creative techniques to just ensure that the public, the consumers are aware about why battery cages are not good. Yeah.
Mhm. Does the government in the various African countries, does the government get involved in regulating animal welfare normally, or is it kind of a hands-off approach?
Yeah, so in terms of government, what I can say is that different countries have different policies and legislation surrounding animal welfare. Some countries in Africa, like for example, Tanzania, have very elaborate animal welfare policies and laws in place, while some countries do not have those in place. I've witnessed a number of organizations also trying to enter into the policy advocacy space where they try to engage with the policymakers and the government to try to perhaps revise existing laws and also incorporate welfare and housing as part of key welfare standards. So this is work that is ongoing. But of course, as with any other policy work, this takes a lot of time. So it's just a process that is ongoing. Yeah.
Is it, I can imagine there's almost two parallels going at the same time where, as far as governments are concerned, you're trying to grow the economy and bring in more business and more corporations. And
Yeah.
then at the same time, you have this animal welfare movement trying to get
Mm.
ahead of it. Do
Mhm.
you find that that is definitely the case? And it, yeah, I'm wondering like how decisions end up being made around that
Mhm.
regulation or no regulation.
Yes, I think to answer your question, policy change and any policy advocacy work is not easy. And definitely some governments, some Afri, maybe I may not mention name, but some governments support the use of cages through maybe their support, or even we found some international financing organizations and international NGOs also promoting the use of battery cages as one of the farming techniques. So these are some of the challenges that groups encounter as they try to share the messaging and also work on mitigating this. However, I'd say that what we are trying to push at the end of this is to show that, you know what, animal welfare is a key consideration and should always be a key consideration, even in farming and everything. So, those two messages actually, I feel like we can coexist. You can
Okay.
still, it's not that I'm promoting the intensification of farming or things like that, but just to show that, you know what, animal welfare is a key consideration that can be included in the government priorities and plans, even as perhaps their plans to achieve food security and promote livelihoods for millions of people and things like that. So, of course, the work is a bit challenging. Even corporate outreach work in itself is not always simple, easy. And of course, engaging some companies is also difficult. But I can say, looking at the progress and the achievements that we've been able to do so far, I can just say that the future looks brighter because more and more consumers, more and more companies, for example, even governments are starting to recognize that this is something that is actually worth looking into. It's equally important. Yes.
Yeah, you know, you sit in a unique position. If I think about how it might compare to the United States, for instance, you know, we're at this place where these factory systems have been set up for years and they're so deeply entrenched in the way that we operate that it's so difficult to try to remove them. And then you
Mhm.
sit in this unique position, you know, being one of these developing countries in Africa where you could maybe get ahead of it and then not deal with all of these difficult problems that exist once it's already in place. So you could see
Mhm.
that, like, as a human
Right.
being, your mind might go, yes, let's get ahead of it and like put this in now so we don't have to deal with it later.
Exactly, exactly. And that's actually our thought process. And also, I think one approach that has worked as well in terms of thinking about this, for example, is calling global companies that have made a commitment in the US to also start being accountable in regions like Africa. So, for example, if you're a global company, you're based in the US, but you have, or maybe other Western countries, but you have branches in Africa, if you can also be accountable. So, knowing that, you know what, it's not just about committing in other regions of the world and not making the same effort or the same commitment in Africa. So, yes, we are trying to get ahead of this problem very early on, using different approaches through the stay cage free message and the go cage free message as well. Through corporate outreach, engaging companies. Also, groups are doing well with policy advocacy and also awareness campaigns. And through all these different approaches, just trying to ensure that we tackle this big problem and before it becomes unbearable. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I know in Africa there have been many years of trying to solve how to coexist
Mm,
happily with wildlife. Do you think
mhm.
that that plays into this at all? That people have already for many years been thinking about how do we think about wildlife, animal welfare along with civilians? Do you think that plays into people being a little more ahead of the game on the farm animals too?
The interventions on wild animal welfare and farm animal welfare, I think, are a bit different. And of course, wild animal welfare is a big area. But I am not really so focused on wild animal welfare, so I may not have so much context to offer with regard to that.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. Do you know, just in general in Africa, is there, you know, there's farm animals that people try to help. Is there also like a movement to help companion animals that do companion animals tend to live with people? Like we have dogs and cats living with us here?
Yes, for example, in Kenya we have the KSPCA. We have many different countries have the SPCA networks where they rescue companion animals. I've seen a number of organizations, including some of our member groups in the OA, who have different programs focusing on companion animals, like rabies vaccination drives and things like that. So yes, that's an area that we also have, for example, here in Kenya, rescue centers for cats and kittens and dogs. So yes, that's a very big area. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so kind of animal welfare all around. Um,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I've seen, for example, there's a lot, for example, going back to the rabies vaccination drives, this happens a lot. I've seen this happening in different countries, because even the government is aware that, you know what, when rabies is a threat not only to the animal, but also to human health. So I've seen this do happen a lot, yes. So companion animal warfare, yes, is also a big cost area in Africa.
Okay. Do you think that in general, um, so if I think about here in the United States, in general, people will think often of dogs and cats and
Mm,
protecting them, not as much about farm animals.
mm,
And wildlife is another bucket. Do you
mm.
find in the different countries in Africa or even in Kenya that people tend to think of all animals kind of equally or bucket them into different buckets that would have different rights?
Mhm. Well, I think that's a bit of a complex question because of, for example, if I talk about wild animal welfare, like wild animals are protected by the government of many countries. They elaborate, for example, anti-poaching drives. They are protected in reserved areas like national parks and game reserves. So that's for wild animals. For companion animals, there are, of course, also elaborate programs like vaccination drives, there are rescue centers. And for farm animal welfare is what now we are trying to really pick up on that because that's an area now that we need to focus on considering the intensification of farming. So for each of these categories, there are interventions that are happening in place. I can't say, of course, this differs per country. Some countries prioritize this better than others, depending on what really is their key priority area. For example, some countries in Southern Africa are so keen on beef production because that's their key export. So for that, you find that they have very elaborate measures on that category of farming. And for others who are so invested in wildlife because of tourism and things like that, have elaborate ways to protect wild animals. So I can say that differs between different countries. Yes, but in all cause area, in all categorizations, yes, there's farm animal warfare, there's wild animal warfare, and there's companion animal warfare.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I wanted to ask you about the effective altruism animal welfare fund that you advise. What is that? And yeah, what is that?
Yeah, so effective altruism is a very big area, and it's a very big movement, if I can say sorry. And I work as the advisor. We have the Animal Welfare Fund, and the Animal Welfare Fund provides funding for different cause areas. I think some of these cause areas are highlighted on the website, on our website, for example, like fish welfare, like welfare campaigns, policy drives, research. And it's been a key area that has provided funding for so many animal welfare organizations all across the world. So just like the Open Wing Alliance is a funder, so the Effective Altruism Animal Welfare Fund is also provides funds for animal welfare groups to be able to undertake interventions on those cause areas. So, of course, as an advisor, I do provide feedback, for example, on different organizations that apply to the fund, just to ensure that we are able to really support the interventions as much as we can. Yes.
Oh, I see.
As
Okay. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. How can listeners support your work?
Okay, so I think firstly, just interacting with the work that the different animal welfare organizations in Africa, for example, the member groups of the OA do, supporting them. Many of them are very active on like LinkedIn, on the social media spaces, also attending the AVA and things like that. And many of these groups also look forward to, and they are looking for, let's say, like funding opportunities to be able to support and grow their work. So that would be an interesting area to support them. But personally, I'd like to connect on LinkedIn, on email. I think I'm always happy to engage on animal welfare work in Africa. So, yes.
Okay, perfect. And let's make sure that I get links to all of the spots that you think would be good for people to go, and we'll put that in the show notes. So that'll be perfect. Um, the last thing that I always ask everybody who comes on this show is for one simple thing that you think anyone listening could try today that would help animals or the environment.
Mhm. I think I would recommend being conscious about how can I put this? For on the Open Wing Alliance, we have, let me just check just our actions up. Give me a minute. So at the Open Wing Alliance, we have what we call the Open Wing Alliance Action App, and I'll share the link to that. And the Action App really helps us to be able to take actions on campaigns that we do, for example, asking food companies to make a cage-free commitment. So if you could volunteer by asking one food company or one coffee shop or any company that is within your vicinity to just make a cage-free commitment, to commit to sourcing their products from cage-free sources. I think that will make impact for a lot of hens that are confined in cruel battery cages. So just being very conscious about where your food comes from and just taking the step to ask any company that is close to you or something, or help supporting us in our campaigns, and of course through funding or donations that help keep our work to be going. Yes.
Yes, amazing. And just to clarify, people could be living anywhere around the world, right? And the corporations may have a branch in Africa. So even if you live in another country, you still may be
Yes,
able to reach out to the corporations that are headquartered where you are. Is that right?
exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Aurelia, for coming on the show. It was so nice to meet you. It's really fascinating to hear about the work you're doing. And honestly, you can feel your energy. And I imagine it is a really great catalyst to the people around you and in pushing this movement forward. So I'm thankful that you came and joined us and spent your time with us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brandy, for having me. It's been a pleasure. Yes, and I look forward to talking more next time.
Perfect. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us. Bye. Hey, all. Thanks for listening today. Things sound really promising in Africa, don't they? Aurelia is just filled with so much enthusiasm that it's hard for that not to catch on, right? Although she lives in Nairobi, she represents all of Africa in so many conversations about animal welfare. And so it's really cool to hear her perspective. And it must be crazy to be her and to see such drastic differences between industrialization in some places and then being able to actually maybe get ahead of factory farming in other places, which is just amazing and hopeful for sure. All of these show notes are at foranimalsforearth.com/show/87. There you will find links to everything that she mentioned. It has the link to her LinkedIn if you want to connect with her directly. The Open Wing Alliance Action app, which sounds really cool if you want to go check that out. And then links to all of the organizations that she works with. I just want to say thank you to Aurelia and thank you to you guys for being here. It just feels like such an amazing opportunity to get to learn about animal advocacy in other places in the world. So thank you to Heidi and Maho as well, because it really is, at least to me, I thought it was really cool to learn how, most of it is similar and our hearts are kind of all in the same place, right? But the way to get there is different based on where you are. So thank you to the ladies for coming on, and thank you guys, all of you, for being here to listen. This is the last episode in the little series around the world. I have a personal update to share that I'm going to share in the next episode. So yeah, come back for that. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a great week and I will talk to you soon. Bye.